Shabbat Shalom. This week's Torah portion is Shelach, sent forth, and it is one of the best Torah portions of the whole year, because in this Torah portion, God tells Moses to send out the spies, the representatives of each of the 12 tribes who are to go into the land of Israel, check it out, and bring back a report to the children of Israel waiting in the desert. And of course, a mission that starts out with so much promise and so much excitement ends in disaster. Let's read a few of the verses. We're in Numbers chapter 13, verse 27. This is after the spies come back, and they come and they report what they have found. And they related to him and said, "We have come unto the land where you sent us, and surely it flows with milk and honey, and this is the fruit of it. Nevertheless, the people are powerful that abide in the land, and the cities are fortified and very great. And moreover, we saw the children of the giant there. The Amalekites abide in the land of the south, and the Hittites and the Jebusites and the Amorites abide in the mountains, and the Canaanites abide by the sea and by the coast of the Jordan." And Caleb stilled the people concerning Moses and said, "Let us go up at once and possess it, for we are well able to overcome it." But the men that went up with him said, "We are not able to go up against the people, for they are stronger than we." And they brought up an evil report of the land which they had searched unto the children of Israel, saying, "The land through which we have gone to search it is a land that eats up the inhabitants thereof, and all the people that we saw in it are men of a great stature. And there we saw the giants, the sons of Anak, who come of the giants, and we were in our own eyes as grasshoppers, and so we must have been in their eyes." And of course, the punishment for all of this is that God declares that this entire generation will die in the desert, and only Joshua and Caleb, the only two of this entire generation, will go into the land of Israel. All the rest will die, and only their children will end up entering the land of Israel. I wanted to focus on just a few things that we see in this chapter, in this section that I have read. First of all, for the first verse, where we have the beginning of the report, they do say good things. They talk about a land flowing of milk and honey and great fruit. Where they fall is when they start talking about the people. They talk about people who are powerful, who have fortified cities, who are giants. They mention all the different nations. And then it makes it very clear. They're afraid. While the land itself may be a good land, they have no confidence. They are afraid. They don't believe that they will be able to conquer this land. And Caleb, of course, trying to encourage them, trying to reverse this negative impression, he says immediately, "We are able to overcome it." There is a crisis of confidence. Caleb is trying to encourage them. He fails, of course, because at the end of the day, they respond back and they talk about, "We saw ourselves as grasshoppers." What is this? This is a very subjective description. This is how we perceived ourselves when we went into this land and we saw who we are going to have to come up against when we have to conquer the land. Of course, this is what gets God very angry. And God talks about the fact that after all he's done for the children of Israel, they don't trust him. They don't believe that he will be there with them to assist them and make sure they do succeed. But there's another few words here that I want to focus on. Scripture tells us, when it's describing the actual words in verse 32, it says, "And they brought up an evil report of the land." Now, I have to say that these words in English don't do justice to the Hebrew here. The Hebrew is Vayotziu dibat haaretz. Dibat haaretz is more than an evil report. It is a slanderous report. It is defaming the land. And indeed today, in modern Hebrew, if you're going to sue somebody for slander or defamation, you are going to use the word dibah, which is exactly the same word that we have here. And actually, our sages and most of the commentaries, when they talk about the actual sin that happened here, aside from the overarching sin of lack of faith, they focus in on this particular sentence. They defamed the land of Israel. And it is for this defamation of the land that they are punished as well. And that's clear because this is when Scripture is going to summarize what it is they said, it says they slandered the land. Now the truth of the matter is, if you think about it, they were expressing their own lack of confidence. They didn't say the land was bad. They said it's a land that we cannot possibly conquer. But Scripture sees that as slandering the land itself. And I think this is a very powerful message for us today as well. The land of Israel itself is a gift. It's a gem. It is something that everything we have read in the Scripture, from the first verse in Genesis until this point, is leading up to this treasure that God has set aside for His children of Israel, who He Himself has also set aside as a separate nation. And everything that has happened until now is going towards bringing these two chosen items, the chosen people with the chosen land together. And it's very, very special. And I think that Scripture is saying here, what God is saying here in this idea of slandering the land, that even if they are in essence talking about their lack of ability to conquer, what they are really doing is slandering the land. What they are really doing is saying to God, yes, you may have selected a precious gift for me, but it's a gift I don't think we can have. That's slander. That's underestimating God's ability to understand what it is we need and where we should be. Instead of treasuring this gift, they are ready to reject it. And there's nothing more serious than that. And so what we see are, whereas after the worship of the golden calf, which in theological terms was much worse. At that time there was a plague and there was a punishment, but God forgave them and they went on. In this case, God does forgive the people after Moses' prayer, but He can't go on. Because the people who do not treasure what God has given them and who are not confident in their ability to conquer the land with God's help are not the people who are going to be able to enter the land. I think if we think about how the state of Israel was established, what happened almost 100 years ago with the beginnings of the modern Zionist movement, many of those pioneers who came to the land of Israel were not men of faith. In fact, many of them had actually rejected God. But there's one thing they had. They had confidence. They had confidence in the beauty and the treasure that was this land. And they had confidence in their ability to overcome whatever obstacles were in their way, the enemies that were many even then, and conquer this land. And perhaps there is something very special about that attitude. Even if you have a problem in your faith, and I'm certainly not advocating that people should have problems with their faith, but God must keep a very, very special place in His heart for people who treasure this land of Israel. And on the contrary, God must feel very strongly about those who would slander His land. And if I may extend that just one little bit now, in a day and an age when it is His people, the children of Israel, who are indeed in possession of the land, not the giants and not the Canaanites, God must look very, very unfavorably upon those who slander His people in His land. Shabbat Shalom from Samaria.